In today's video game commentary, we're going to be talking about which champions are particularly strong and advantageous in Paladins' new game mode, Rise of Furia. What is going on YouTube? King Kevin here with a gameplay from, as I just mentioned in the intro, the new game mode in Paladins, Rise of Furia. Now I realize I haven't released a video in a very long time. Part of that has been that I've been in graduate school, I actually just recently graduated, and now I'm back home and I'm trying to figure out the best way I can produce content from my hometown. And the kind of unfortunate part is that my home internet is not very fast and there aren't very many competitors in the area, so the ISPs I can use are very limited, and believe it or not, I think we have one of the better ISPs, but my upload speed is still atrocious, so I can't really stream as well as I would like to. Definitely can't stream up to the quality and standard that I had while I was in grad school, so I'm going to try this whole YouTube thing again, and that's where this video is coming from. But enough explaining, let's talk about the gameplay here. Now, Rise of Furia is the second in-game event that Hi-Rez has released into Paladins, and I think it's a interesting take on a classic mode that we have that is TDM. So the game mode is separated into two parts. The first part is the ascension or the rising of everyone trying to climb this tower and trying to get to the top first. And as you can see, there are many obstacles and platforms. You have to jump up and through, and part of the challenge is not falling off, of course. And this is actually a little bit of a good time to talk about which champions are particularly good, at least at this particular part of this, because the second part is a team deathmatch with some adjusted rules. So as you're climbing this tower, you'll notice that there are these little rings that are scattered about on various platforms. And a mini objective within this tower climbing section is to collect these rings. And the reason why I think Talus and flanks in general are very good at this particular part of the game mode is that they have a lot of mobility. So you just saw that I can place out and teleport as Talus by pressing F, jump around to collect the ring, and if I don't feel like using the little jump pads that they provide, which sometimes will throw you off the map, you can press F and teleport back to the base spot where you started from. So because it's definitely advantageous to be collecting these rings as you're ascending the tower, certain flanks with vertical mobility or just mobility in general reign supreme in this mode, or in this part of the mode. Some people who come to mind are Androxus because he has dashes that can go in any direction. You have Maeve who's able to dash also in any direction and has a reset so she can dash twice in a row. And of course the one that really comes to mind is Evie, who has two different movement abilities, both of which are on a very short cooldown. I would even go so far so as to say that Evie is actually the best champion for this part of the game mode, because not only is she pretty much always guaranteed to be able to stay on the platforms by repositioning herself with Blink or with Soar, but she's also able to collect the rings in a way that no one else really can. So even though Androxus has 3 different dashes in his nether step and Maeve is able to, pounce, reset, pounce, Evie still reigns supreme over these guys, because if you ever play a game with an Evie, and I wasn't able to capture this in gameplay, but the way you generally play Evie in this game mode is that because you have all of this mobility, you generally just want to go around jumping and collecting ring to ring to ring. And the reason is because, again, no one can really keep up with that except for the other Evie on the other team. So your job is really to collect the rings and pretty much get to the top first, because you can just soar and blink straight upward and then skip levels as you're ascending this tower. So it's very advantageous to collect all the rings, but it's also pretty important to get to the top first. The reason is, at the very top of this tower, the way that you end this section of the game mode is that there's this little obelisk stone-like thing that you just saw before I fell off the top because I was really dumb. But the way that this works, I think, is that whichever team contributes the most damage to that little stone or obelisk thing will actually get an additional amount of ultimate charge. And the way that's portrayed is that another one of those rings will spawn right in front of where your team spawns on this deathmatch map. So now that we're here at the top fighting this modified deathmatch mode, let's talk about what makes it different from a typical deathmatch that you might play in the live game. So the main difference between this mode and a typical deathmatch mode, which I really should have mentioned in the very beginning of this video, is that you actually don't get to choose which champion you want. So even though this whole video is about which champions are the best at this game mode, it's really luck of the draw. It's really more so knowledge of who to look out for if you're playing against them, or if you do get a champion, you should know which one is good and which one is bad. So the modified deathmatch rules for this are a little bit different in that regard. And the draft is exactly the same on both sides, meaning both teams have the exact same champions. They're both assigned at random, and you randomly get a champion from that pool. It's not like they give a random pool of champions and then you get to select from that. You are just automatically assigned one when you start the match. Another very huge difference and potentially game-breaking deal is the fact that there are no customizations to your champion at all, meaning that you can't actually itemize, as in you can't buy things like Cauterize or Rejuve or Chronos or anything like that you would normally buy in the item shop, and you don't get your custom loadout. So there are no talents, there are no loadout cards, there are no really good super OP loadouts that you can use to, try to get an advantage as if it were a typical deathmatch mode. And the reason why this matters and the reason why they made it this way is so that you can play on a very level playing ground. Because Hi-Rez implemented the system where you have to level up a champion to get a certain talent, it makes it a little bit unfair if someone owns a talent that is really good for a champion, and that talent might be at level 8 or level 12, but someone who's brand new to the game who wants to just play this game mode doesn't have access to that same talent. So it's a little bit for fairness sakes, but for people who have all the talents and people who just grind out all the champions and know how to play the game, it is a little bit frustrating. So now that we know how this is different from a typical deathmatch mode, let's talk about why I think Talus and certain other champions are really strong at this game mode. And you just saw one of the reasons right there, is that his ultimate is actually pretty darn good. The reason is that this deathmatch mode, since it takes place on the top of a tower, if you are near the edge and someone has the ability to knock you back, that makes the champion very strong. So if you know that someone is near the edge, it could be the tank on the enemy team, it could be like that Saris who I knew was low and I wanted to kill her, I can just ult them. If I know they're near the edge, I can click on them and then select them, dash forward, and like knock them back into the abyss, and they can't really do anything about that. It's also not a good idea to ult anyone with a lot of mobility. Again, we talked about Eevee, we talked about Maeve, maybe even Buck and Androxus. All the other flanks pretty much are not good targets for this. Anyone who has to walk on the ground or anyone who doesn't have a nice, easy movement ability is really good for a target for Talus's ultimate. So to recap, I think the flank class of champions is the strongest one for this particular game mode, again, Rise of Furia. Their movement ability helps them with the tower climbing section of this in collecting rings, or even if you fall off, you're able to reposition yourself back onto the platforms. With regards to the flank potential of being able to kill a lot of people or 1v1 champions very well, that part is also very helpful in the TDM portion of this game mode. And especially champions who have a self-heal, like Talus, like Buck, Pip, any of the healers really are really strong in this game mode as well, because things like Cauterize are no longer on the table. Overall, I actually think that Eevee is my favorite champion in this game mode, but let me know what you guys think. Who is your favorite champion to play? Do you have really fun plays where you've knocked people off with the map with Torvald's ultimate, or maybe Makoa hooked someone off the edge as well? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I would really like to hear what you guys think about this new game mode, as well as the more recent things that have been happening in Paladins. And if you guys want me to do a video on anything that has been happening more recently in Paladins, or maybe Paladins news, things like Paladins coming onto the Switch, or thoughts on Paladins coming out of beta, or the battle pass, or the new champion, anything like that, I'm definitely more than happy to consider it for my next video. So let me know in the comments below what sort of Paladins related content you guys would like to see in the future. So that'll do it for me. Thanks so much for watching. Please feel free to rate, comment, and subscribe for more in the future, and I'll see you guys in the next video.